Good morning, everyone. My name is Benny Benavides. My name is Benny Benavides. I'm one of the district administrators here in San Diego County. And this is Eva Diaz. She's one of the unit supervisors here. We've been tasked, given the privilege of rolling out this program in San Diego County. So it's our privilege to bring this portion of the presentation to you and to tell you a little bit about parole supervision and what it encompasses. I said sarcastically, we've been forced. It really isn't. Myself, and I know Eva shares the same philosophy as far as treatment and trying to do as much as we can for the offender, because we've been in the system quite a long time. Back in 1997, I started with the Department of Corrections. It was called Department of Corrections then. Now they added the rehabilitation. But my introduction into the department was in Los Angeles when I was thrown into a caseload of over 100 parolees that I was assigned to, that I had to take immediate charge of. Along with that, we had people coming out every day. So I had very little knowledge of the system and how it worked. And to see these individuals roll out with just $200 given to them at the gate, and a lot of them, when they actually reported to the office, had very little of that $200 left. It was quite a rude awakening for me. We had to build the program and build a task for them so they could go out and become productive members of society. I also look back into my history and look and see when I was a deputy probation officer, my previous career as a deputy probation officer, and looking and seeing how we used to deal with the offender. I worked juvenile and into the adult system, and there was a tendency, I think, with criminal justice agencies to push the case through the process. And you look through our court systems and how it currently operates to where, we have our juveniles where we're fast to place them on probation, and we're fast to put them in custody, and we push them into the adult system, and then from the adult system we put them on probation to jail. And finally to prison. And as a deputy probation officer, I can say, yeah, I sent a lot of people to prison. I wrote several pre-sentence reports that ended up sending people to prison. And there was a tendency to push it through the process because we did what we could do. And we worked in silos, and we worked independently, and we wanted to get it out of our hair. And that's what I bring to you today. And I think that's what this whole program brings to you today. I can't overstate the collaboration that's gone into this to where it really sets a profound precedence for the criminal justice field, in that we have agencies working together. We have county, state, service providers. We have private and public agencies working together. So I need to emphasize that there is a lot of collaboration there. What I want to do is I want to touch on what we do in paroles. I think if I was to canvass some of you and ask you what a parole agent does, I think a common response would be, well, they return people to prison, right? That's what the role of a parole agent, right? I see some heads nodding, yeah. That's not our job. It really isn't. It happens that way because some people do pose a risk to society. And at that point, we need to intervene with programs, with structured type of services. We can avoid doing that. We read in the paper, and Von Jeffries also brought to the attention the numbers of people we're returning to prison. And a lot of them are coming from our side. They're coming from the parole system. They're coming as parole violators. Well, this is what this is addressing from a re-entry portion. I think Von Jeffries indicated that this initiative, this law, is a re-entry program. So the rubber meets the road here in this program. So this is our facet of it. Our primary focus, our primary goal in paroles, contrary to what you might think, is to assist the offender in reintegration back into the community. That is what we do. We assist them to reintegrate back. Under SB 618, it's the same. It's for a smooth transition back into the community. Same thing, stated a different way. Now, how do we plan to do that? Well, there's several tools that we plan to employ with this. And one of the biggest tools is the parole agent's assistant up there. Now, I use that term, although the next presentation is going to actually get into that, and that is simply the community case manager. I call it the parole agent's assistant. That's essentially what that person is going to do. It's a community case manager that's going to be assigned to assist the agent, work hand in hand with the agent to bring down that caseload. I mentioned to you that when I went into the system, it was 100 to 1. We've gotten those numbers down to approximately 70 to 1. But if any of you have ever done casework, 70 to 1 is a pretty big caseload, a hardly manageable caseload. With the assistance of the community case manager, we hope to bring some hands-on type of supervision to them. We plan to also utilize the interdisciplinary team. That concept, which Lupe Rabago from probation introduced to you, how they plan to have an interdisciplinary team at the front end, right after they've compiled all the assessments and evaluations, and they get into a team and they decide what they're going to do as far as a life plan. Well, we're going to use that same concept on the back end, that same interdisciplinary team concept on the back end. And we're going to do that in the form of what we call a community roundtable. Ms. Diaz will talk to you more about that a little bit later. Close collaboration, I mentioned to you, the agencies coming together. Ms. Rodriguez from the DA's office mentioned to you one instance where the parole agent will be talking to the district attorney's office, where we'll have service providers, we'll have everyone together working. I mean, the communication at the front end is going to be carried out on the back end. Parole agent, their job essentially will remain the same. They'll have direct oversight over the entire process. A person gets out on parole, the parole agent will be the person in charge of supervising that particular inmate or a parolee. We envision the community case manager hands-on interaction. This isn't going to be a person that's going to sit behind a desk and is going to set up plans and doing that. We're going to have that community case manager working right with them, working with the parolee. In fact, one facet, if I can steal some of Ms. Christine Taylor Brown's presentation, one facet is that community case manager is actually going to be the one that picks up that parolee, that picks up that inmate from the prison and takes them to their first place where they're going to live. Big improvement there. Now, can parole agents do that? Yeah, they can, and we do it, but we don't do it all the time. We can't hardly afford to do it all the time. Community case manager is going to have hands-on type of interaction. In addition, we plan to utilize that community case manager to develop alternatives, to develop what sanctions, what alternatives we have. Instead of sending them back to prison as the first thought, we plan to employ the number of resources that the CCM would have, and what other agencies that are also come to the table. We plan to utilize that. The other facet is the continuing case plan, the life plan, in other words. That document, as mentioned earlier, is a fluid document. We plan to make modifications to that document. We realize that some of the questions that were brought out earlier about what if they don't want that program? What if they change their mind? Well, that's what happens. I mean, people change their mind, and we realize that. With that in mind, we've set that document to be a fluid document, a document that we can make changes to. Some of the people that come in here won't be able to finish their program. In that case, what happens? Does that whole life plan get thrown out the window? No. We make modifications to it. We follow through with it. We change it. If the priority changes, if the interest changes, we'll make those kind of adjustments. Those are the substantial portions of it. I'll let Ms. Diaz talk about the community roundtable.
The community roundtable is equivalent to what the multidisciplinary team is that Lupe spoke to about earlier, where the multidisciplinary team meets at the county jail after they've done the assessments and determine what is the life plan is created, what are the weaknesses, strengths, and what needs the person needs. The community roundtable will meet at the parole side. When Mr. Benavides was speaking about the back end is paroles. And what is parole? I mean, what is the parole agent going to do when the person gets out? The difference that the SB 618 is going to add, and the big asset that the parole agent is going to get, is that we're going to have a community case manager. The way the system is right now, when in participant / inmate / parolee, paroles, he shows up at the parole office, like Mr. Benavides said, with the if you're lucky, he show up with some of the $200, but more than likely he already used it at the trolley stop, because on Iris Street, when they get dropped off, you know, the connection is right there and they already bought their dope. And then of course they have to stop downtown where the hookers hang out, and they got to get that done too. So by the time they make it to the parole office, you know, you're lucky if they have 20 cents to their name and they need a bus pass or whatever. And so when you have this participant show up at your office on their, hopefully within 24 hours, but more than likely it'll be about 3 days later, or 2 days later after they got out, they're showing up with no community resources at all. They don't even have a place to stay, and then they show up at 5 minutes to 5 on a Friday, and they have POC needs, and they have a myriad of things. They have nothing. They're just, hey, I'm here. Take care of me. And so what happens is that the parole agent has to get on the phone and try to make some phone calls. A, get a housing set up for them. B, hopefully the POC doctor hasn't left and we can get some of the meds for them. And starts making all these phone calls and looking at the Rolodex and trying to get resources. SB 618 is going to have that case manager picking them up. Those things have already been addressed 6 months prior to the person leaving. But if things change a day or 2 days before the person paroling, those issues will be addressed. And the person will have the $200, and they will be taken to cash the $200, and those resources will be there for this person. And you're asking, why are we doing this? Why are you going to just choose a handful of people to do this? Because we're trying to do something to stop the recidivism. I started my career in 1985 at Soledad. I was part of activation here at Donovan. I think when I started, the recidivism rate was about 85%, 85 to 90. Ben, was it about 85 to 90? You don't remember? It was so long ago. Our recidivism rate was high. We're down in the 70s now. SB 618 is an attempt to try to stop some of the recidivism and help these people. I was a lockup sergeant here at SEG. I did high controls, I did sex offenders, I did all the high-risk parolees, inmates, / and everything. I just keep seeing them coming back. And we have to do something to give them something to address their issues so that they don't come back. My favorite line that I used to do to the parolees when I had a caseload, because I'm a unit supervisor now, so I supervise the parole agents who supervise the parolees. But my favorite line to them used to be, put me out of business. I challenge you to put me out of business. But Ms. Diaz, what will you do? I said, don't worry about it. I'll think of something else to do. Put me out of business. Stop coming back. So that's what we're trying to do. And we need a buy-in. We need a buy-in from all of you. You know, we need a buy-in from the correctional officers. We need a buy-in from the whole system. And that's why we have the R now. We're going to address the rehabilitation part. We're really good at keeping people in. We can keep them in and we can warehouse them. So now we have to get just as proficient in the rehabilitation part. So the members of the community roundtable are going to be the parole agent. The parole agent is going to be so relieved and so happy that now he's got all these resources, these people helping him. As a parole agent, it's like I don't have to worry about where this guy's going to sleep, or you know where his programs are going to be, or jobs, and all those issues. All those are factors that determine how successful the person's going to be on parole and how much work the parole agent is going to have. If the person has a house, has a program, has a job and everything, do you think the parole agent has to worry about them? Not as much, right? But the other side of the coin is if you have a parolee who doesn't have a house, his mom already kicked him out, his wife doesn't want him anymore, and he's sleeping on the streets or under the bridge, you don't know what he's doing. He can be hitting little old ladies upside the head to take their money for this dope. He's breaking into your house. It says it takes for a heroin addict about $3,000 worth of property to steal, so you can get $250 to use. So that's a lot, every day. So that's what SB 618 is going to do, an attempt to assist these people so that we can protect our communities. So they're not out there breaking into your houses. So they're not hitting somebody upside the head. Because one of our focuses too, and our responsibility is to protect the community. And we're protecting the community by assisting these people so they won't continue in their criminal behavior. Because a lot of it is drug related. The robbery, the burglary is because they're out there trying to get their fix. The community case manager and the parole agent are going to be, that's the right hand of the parole agent. The community case manager is the right hand. Communication, back and forth, continually. And the service providers and the faith-based community people and anybody else that has an interest in this person and is an asset and will successfully help them to successfully complete parole. Success, not just parole, but their life, to turn their life around so that they're not our customers anymore. They stop being our customers. They're a productive member of society. They're contributing.
Let me clarify just one more thing, Ms. Diaz. This community roundtable, we named it community roundtable, but essentially it's a disciplinary team. It's a meeting that these participants will all engage in, depending on who has something to bring to the table. And we plan to hold this meeting, this interdisciplinary team meeting, within 2 weeks of the person's release. So we can bring these factors together. And then we plan to conduct these interdisciplinary meetings every month thereafter. So that's part of the process.
The goals are guidance and instruction for the SB 618 participant. We'll let them know, like we've touched before, usually if you go to committee and stuff, we just tell them what they're going to have. Okay, you're going to be a welder, you're going to be this. There's no input from the participant. They're going to have the participant's going to have an input. And it's going to carry through. It's a wraparound services. It's going to carry from the inception, which is when they first got sentenced to prison, in prison, and now they're out in the community. So everything is a continuum of care and a continuum of services. And all along the way, this person has known there's people that care. Why? Somebody's taken an interest in me. There's the personal contact, the consensus outcome. In other words, all these interdisciplinary people, your service providers, the parole agent, everybody looks at the situation or whatever the concern is in a different way. The drug rehab person would say, well, no, he needs really program XYZ. There are programs that are, rehabilitation programs that are designed for specific drug abusers or who do not cater to, let's say, someone that uses drugs but also has mental issues. So they look at it one way. The parole agent is looking at it, I see the criminal history, and theoretically, if you put him in a program where there's a lot of women, he might try to, do something to one of them. So I don't think he needs to be in a co-ed program. He probably needs to be in a totally male program. So everybody adds something. And then there's the participant, the parolee say, hey, you know what? I remember I went to this program and I really did good. I messed up. You think you can put me here? Or you think you can do this? So everybody, and there's clarity, everybody, the life plan, these are the goals, this is what's going to happen, and everybody's on the same page. That's unheard of. You don't get that kind of help and resources and that kind of to come to a consensus so that in the best interest of the participant.
You guys have meetings, don't you, with your bosses? You do, right? Tell me you do. Everyone has meetings, right? And you've had meetings with your family or friends and all. And when you go to those meetings, there's usually something you have to offer, right? That's what we envision here. Everyone bringing something to the table. And everyone leaving with that sure thought of accomplishment. And so we have clarity. Have you ever left a meeting and not know what was being said, or what was said, or what was the outcome, or what we're going to do? That's exactly what this thing we hope to do. We hope to bring clarity to where the offender actually walks out and knows what they're doing and what they're saying.
The role of the parole agent is the primary decision maker within the process. the parole and SB 618 program via case conference and the primary case manager. Basically, the parole agent is the one that is the orchestra conductor. So they direct they're the conductor. Next one. Role of the parole agent continued. The parole agent and the community case manager meets prior to release to revise the life plan. And that's a key component. You usually don't have a parole agent getting with any of the pre-release people prior to the person coming out and saying, hey, you know, what are we going to do with this guy? Because you don't have time. As a parole agent, you're carrying 70 cases. Now, you think 70 cases isn't much because the institution CC1s, I think, carry over 100 or something. But when you're talking 70 cases, you're talking about 70 cases plus their mother, their father, their families, the dog, everybody. It's not just 70 cases. It involves everybody. So it is a lot to keep track of. So they're going to meet and to see if there's any tweaks in the life plan. There's going to be input prior to it. The final approval of sanctions. And sanctions, it could be anything as minor, if they had any disciplines, whether in the prison, or sanctions are also if when they come out on parole and they get a positive test while they're in the program and stuff. Those will be addressed interdisciplinarily, and the first consensus is not going to be just to send them back. I mean, everything's going to be done to try to place someone, get them some help, place them somewhere, or make sure that we address whatever the violation or the issue is. Communication with parole officers county-wide. The community case manager will be, like I said, in close communication with the parole agent. They are the right hand of the parole agent. Community case manager, prison case manager, they're just handing off the baton, and in the community case manager and the parole agent will be working very closely together. Information about the law enforcement process. Sometimes there might be an offense, or let's say there be a violation, or there's a new crime committed. That's where the communication between the parole agent and the district attorney's office will come into play. An example would be they did a petty theft, and the DA, instead of filing a new case, we may talk to him and say, hey, you know what? And the community case manager and everybody else involved says, we found this program for him, and yeah, he did the petty theft, but he really wanted it because he was using dope. If we put him in this really structured program, I think he'd be okay. And that's where all the communication and all collaboration between all the agencies. Does everybody realize how impacted that is, all the communication between all these agencies? Do you know that there's not even much communication between the institutions and parole, let alone you include the county and all these other agencies? How massive, how big that is? Does everybody understand that? Yes or no? Yes. This is huge. I mean, I remember when I worked inside the institution, just to, from the ad building to the facilities, right? The communication. You can't even get a memo, communication to, out to the facilities, or the facilities to the ad building. I mean, so this is really huge. I mean, for all of us to come together to concentrate resources to assist these people so they don't come back. And God willing, we'll get there.
You want to sum it up? What's the distinctions of this program? Why is this program different from any other program that we have? What are we doing different? Well, in a lot of ways, we aren't doing a lot different. But there are some ways that the things we are doing different, it's a big difference. I mentioned to you the community roundtable. Well, this program plans to have an expanded application of the interdisciplinary team concept. That's a big portion of it. Actually, we see that as one of the biggest portions of it because we have a venue where we can discuss these kind of problems, and we can go to the other level with it. In addition, we also have follow-up to the life plan. We can make adjustments to that life plan. We can see what the interests are if they've changed. As Ms. Diaz harped on, the interagency collaboration among agencies. This is a big milestone that we're taking with this. County and state talking together. You'd think that it happened. Well, you know how it happened? It happened with that probation officer's report going to CDCR. That was the only method of. Yeah. We worked in what essentially can be viewed as silos. The probation department, the sheriff's office, law enforcement. You look at your section. I think a lot of you are from the education vocational realm, correct? Classification. I mean, do you see yourself pushing the case forward? You see yourself only trying to achieve your objective? We plan to break those barriers down. And this is one method that we want to employ to do that. I mean, this is one way where we're all working together for the same objective. More interagency collaboration, the silo concept, exactly what I was talking about earlier. Provides one-on-one service. Miss Christine Brown-Taylor will talk more about that and exactly what the community case manager does and how they fulfill those duties. And there's a lot of interesting information in there. I think you'll be quite impressed with that. Parole agent's oversight, that won't change. The parole agent is going to be ultimately responsible for the arrest if it happens or for monitoring the case. That parole agent will be the overseer of that case. Essentially what we have occurring is a maximum utilization of expertise, experience, and resources. It's exactly what we hope to accomplish here. Everyone working at the ultimate level. With that in mind, I mean, if there's questions or we want to hold them to questions. The question is whether or not the community case manager is going to have any kind of safety equipment to ensure their safety. And can I take this from you, Ms. Christine Brown? She's the program manager on it, and we had some discussion on that. And we don't really see the role as being an adversary role. We see it as being an advocate for it. So I mean, yeah, definitely there is a threat. There's a risk. Now let me ask you something. Are you asking this because you're considering being a community case manager?
I have other questions too.
Okay.
And I'm really,
You're trying to picture.
There are certain procedures that we have in place to accommodate that. I mean, we're going to have communication.